A year ago, I was staring at myself in the reflective lenses of a broken pair of sunglasses. Looking at the sunflowers I'd made and the leftover inner cardboard rings from the floral wrap that I'd used that day, I had an idea of what I could do. And this was the idea: sunflower goggles. Now, I loved these when I made them. I was just really happy they worked at all. But having worn them in play at a festival in character, I now do see some problems with their design. The flowers themselves are too big, so they don't really sit on the face well, and they also cause a massive blind spot. I got the colours the wrong way around on the inside of the flowers. I spray painted this string stuff, and even with months to air, it was just awful. It smelled like fumes, and it's just kind of got a bit manky. Really didn't appreciate the sweat of the late summer heat. Also, I'm a total idiot who didn't cut the eye holes to be as big as they could be, so the visibility is massively reduced on top of having a blind spot caused by how big the sunflowers are. And overall, they could just be prettier. So, I have some more lenses. These are lenses that I have collected from the floor. And another 3 pairs of sunglasses acquired from charity shops. So they can join the rest of our lenses, they need to be removed from their frames. 2 snaps and some fruitless scratching for the first pair. Some folding, snapping, twisting, and wriggling to get out the second pair. After pointlessly removing 4 screws from the third pair and some snapping, I just gnawed through them with a pair of wire cutters.
That's pretty clean.
And after having removed those from their frames, we have all of our lenses. Except we don't. So that means just a little bit more cracking and snapping. The unique shape of these lenses let them snap out really easily. And they immediately make me think of other ideas, of bug eyes and bug masks. But that is most certainly an idea for another day, so they return to the frames whence they came. A lot of these lenses are grubby though, so they need a clean, and that requires our good old friend isopropyl alcohol. Drink responsibly, don't drink this, that would always be irresponsible. After cutting up a sponge and mixing the alcohol with some water, I don't know if this is bad, someone please tell me if this is bad, don't do this in case it's bad. We are ready to give them a clean. These are the lenses I have chosen for the Mark IIs, partially because they're plain and will go with any colour, but mainly because they fit the rings perfectly. Many of my flowers start with a strip of felt wrapped around a piece of wire in a spiral. Instead, I'm going to build that spiral around my cardboard ring to give my lenses somewhere to sit. This is one of the rougher areas on my first pair, and one of the areas I think I can make the most visual improvement. Using the strips of felt I cut, I'm gluing in and around through the centre of the ring, wrapping it in the process. This has created a much nicer effect, but there are still some gaps to be seen. So, after wrapping through another layer of felt and a little haircut, we have a finished ring. And then there were 2. First, I tried gluing in a ring around in a donut, but that didn't really fit the lens, so instead I sealed them in on each side with the hot glue. To create the pieces that will make up the rest of the centre of the flowers, I cut pieces of felt that are double the thickness that I want them to be, then glue and fold them down their middles before cutting in about roughly 1.5 centimetre intervals. After gluing and sticking those on, this is already starting to look like a big improvement from the first pair. And then there were 2. Of which the right one I think looks slightly better. This is because I made sure to cut off the felt at the same point that I started it, so that the same number of layers existed at every single point around the spiral. First, for petals, I look into my very organised filing system for felt. Pulling out the sunflower bag, I have quite a few petals already cut, which will save me some time. But I'd like to make an improvement from the first mask, painting them up like these violets, taking inspiration from Ring of Fire sunflowers. To do this, we're going to be using alcohol markers or graphic markers as you may know them. Copics and Pro markers would offer higher pigmentation and quality overall, but the felt is absolutely going to shred the tip of any marker used on it over time, so for this kind of project, the cheaper alternative is much preferred. As you can see, I've chosen 5 for testing, but I've immediately fallen in love with this deep red number 10, so that's what I'm going to be using for the petals on this mask. Using the sharp edge of the chisel nib and varied pressure, I can create different thicknesses of line and different intensities of red. Then I use the flat edge of the chisel nib to stamp in the rest of the solid colour at the bottom. There is a considerable amount of bleed through on each petal, which does save me some time on the other side. This also causes a nice stain on my desk and my fingers. I attach the petals to my sunflowers in a very specific way, using a very controlled amount of pressure to place a very controlled amount of glue on the base of the petal before pressing it on and then pinching it firm so that the felt holds a shape and a curvature. After attaching the petals I've painted, I'm one short, so I quickly make another and stick it on. This gives us our first complete layer of petals. After pointlessly counting the holes, I know how many petals I need. More petals to paint. So I'm just gonna, paint in just a little bit, and it's just gonna be all. I might have locked in a little too hard. But now we have enough petals to finish off both of our sunflower lenses. And while I glue on the second layer of petals, I'll talk about why I'm using alcohol markers. From my understanding, the alcohol ink is different from other inks in the way that it will actually stain the acrylic, because the felt is actually just made of acrylic, which is a type of plastic, and the fibres are just bonded together in a dense kind of meshy net. This meshy net creates a porous structure, but the fibres themselves are not. This means when you use something like an India ink or a water-based ink, you're effectively just leaving a big crusty layer of things to dry in between that structure. Instead, when you use the alcohol, the ink actually stains those fibres, then the alcohol evaporates. And then there were two, both of which I'm immensely pleased with. I'm achieving the effect I want on the petals, and the inner sections of the flower look way better than before. I'm so happy with it so far. And so we step to the final hurdle, the frame that they sit on. Which, much like the first pair, will be made out of a plain old white craft mask. And this time I have two major improvements. The first, trying to make the mask less bulky, cutting it smaller and making it more lightweight generally. The second, improving the eye holes, making them big enough so that they actually are getting the full vision allowed by the lenses in the frames. Going for the profile of something like a thin Zorro mask, I sketch on a rough outline using the flowers to help me trace where the eye holes should be, before cutting out the mask with some unnecessarily small scissors. With that done, and a Turkish haircut, here comes the part of the project I've planned the least. How to make the eye holes. The idea I went for was to cut lots of strips that I could then lever up, like little tabs that I could cut off individually or as groups. This did not work, and what resulted is a bit of a mangled mess. But I have made the eye holes the size I need. Unfortunately, in the process, I have severely weakened the cardboard, and I am no longer certain that it will be able to hold the weight of the sunflowers I have made. To remedy this, I will be using one of the most versatile, abundant, and overlooked crafting resources in all of nature, the humble toilet roll tube, of which I have a healthy supply. After cutting one open and rolling it against its natural curve, I cut it into strips. First, I reinforced the nose bridge, which immediately I can tell has added a lot of stability. Then I wrapped the under-eye segments, which took far too long. So instead, I'm placing singular, simple strips across the eyebrows, which are still adding a lot of support. I'm going to be using this green felt instead of string like the first pair, partially because I won't have to paint it or stain it in any way, and partially because I think the darker green will help the yellow and red stand out a lot more. Wrapping the mask in felt strips in the same way we did the center rings, which is highly effective, and it doesn't take me long to wrap up most of the rest of the mask. As it starts to look similar to a green croissant, I fill in the ends with glue, squeeze them tight, and then cut off the excess, before using a Stanley knife to cut and gouge holes in either sides of the mask so that we can string through the elastic, in the process pushing out one of the original eyelets. With the elastic attached and our base complete, we have one final step. And with a final firm press and a generous amount of glue, our flowers are attached to our mask. But now they're complete, are they an improvement on the first pair? I'd most certainly say they are. And with the Mark II sun goggles finished, I can finally go on my quest. have found and watched to the end of this video, thank you so much. This is my first video. I've wanted to make videos for years, but I've never gotten over the hump of the anxiety. But this video really helped push me over that hump. Thank you, CineCake. And if you are a creative or just a person who needs to get something made, please go watch this video and their latest video that's up on their channel right now. It really will help ignite that fire underneath you to get going and do that thing that you want to do. And hey, if you enjoyed this video, stick around. I've got a lot of lenses left over and a lot of other things I need to make. And if anyone has a suggestion of a different flower or an idea for another pair of goggles, let me know in the comments. I'll see you next time, and I hope that's not too long. Shout out, baby.